The next thing that I remember to change my life was Kent State. Now, I went to the University of Miami in Florida. It wasn't a very political place. But Kent State provoked uh, a national unity between students because of that atrocity and our hatred for the war, our fear of the war. Now, this was 1968. No, 1969 was Kent State. And, oh no, 1970. Because I went to school 68, the spring became 69, so 1970, because it was the end of my second year, just near tests and things like that. Final tests, an end of year. And it happened, and we knew there were protests at our school in Coral Gables. I remember my friend Gary and I getting stoned, listening to music, and saying, oh, let's go down there. And we did. And when we got to the university, there was a stage, a platform, and the student council president was at the speaker. And he was telling people to go home. Go back into your communities where you live, go to your dorm, and tell people what's happening. Now, I don't know what got into me, but he said sort of like adios and telling people, and I jumped up on the stage, and before they could turn off the microphone, I grabbed it, and I started to say, there's ROTC, R-O-T-C, on our campus. Those are student soldiers. I said, there's a busload of police behind, that we had seen behind a building as we came in. I said, and our strength is to be together, not to dissipate. I said, but as a group, we have strength. And people started yelling, right on, you know, yeah, yeah, and getting vocal. And I'm becoming a little bit more dramatic. You know, all of a sudden I realized, fuck, the strength of words. And then, as I kept talking, garbage cans started being thrown through windows, and the flagpole started to be shaken, and the flag was attempted to be taken down, and a full-fledged riot started. My friend jumped up on stage and he said, Ken, we better get going. I said, what? He said, you're going to be the first to be arrested for inciting a riot. And I went and I followed him off campus. And I never set foot on that campus again. I quit university, not only because of that, but here comes the next thing in my life that changed it. That summer, that spring, they introduced the lottery system for drafting. So if you went to school, you had a deferment. If you didn't go to school, university, you could be drafted. The lottery system went where they put 300, you put all the birth dates in a year in a basket, and they pulled them. If you were like the first one to be pulled, you were number one. You were going to be drafted if you didn't have a deferment. When they pulled my birthday, September 27th, I was number 225. And they didn't know how many people they were going to take that year. So I still had my deferment from university. But in August, Richard Nixon, the president at the time, announced that they had reached their limits for the year. And that was about 180. people, birth dates. Then I read in like it was an alternative newspaper, that if you made yourself available for the drafts and they didn't draft you by the end of the year, they could never draft you. If the war escalated, if it became bigger and they needed more people, if you made yourself available and they didn't take you, you never could be taken again. It was written in the law. And so I quit school. And then that was my deferment given up. They didn't take me. I never could be drafted. So that was another thing that changed my life. That relief of that pressure that so many people had. People left the country to get away from being drafted. And so that's why I never went to Vietnam. And that's a blessing.